That way they can join. Awesome. Awesome. Looks like folks are starting to jump in. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to give it just a minute or two here to let folks get settled in and get joined up if they're having issues, and then we'll dive right in. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. We're going to be highlighting Intune and Chocolatey together as one, our latest integration that we've put out first part of December of last year. So December 2021, we released this as part of Chocolatey Extension 3.0. And it's been out for a little while now. Folks are starting to use it. People were asking questions about it. So we thought, hey, let's go ahead, put a webinar together. Let's go through what the integration is, what it looks like, how do I get started, how do I use it, all that fun stuff. We're going to cover all of that in this webinar. So let's dive in. I'm joined by Mr. Cory Knox, one of our software developers here at Chocolatey, and he's going to be taking us through step by step what this looks like, how to use it, and all that good stuff. There's going to be time at the end for questions. So if you do have questions, we also have panelists available in the chat to answer your questions there as well. So I'm going to stop my share. That way, Cory, you can start yours, and then let's dive right into it.
And just for clarification, they should be using the Q&A, right?
Correct.
Not the chat.
Yes, correct.
If
There's a
questions.
Q&A out. There's a Q&A option down at the bottom.
Perfect. So to get started, I've got a just Windows 11 VM, relatively fresh. I've just installed Chocolatey. Is basically the only thing installed on it. It's Chocolatey version 1.0.1, and with the Chocolatey license extension version 4. And we do have some docs pages on the Intune integration. So on the docs page under Chocolatey license extension, you'll see an Intune section, and this will cover the prerequisites, your Intune configuration. So anything specifically in Intune that needs to be configured, then converting Chocolatey packages and pushing Chocolatey packages. We do also have on the left under third-party integrations, I'll just bring the tab up over here, but under third-party integrations, we also have for Microsoft Intune where we cover off creating an Azure AD application, which is required to the Azure AD application is what we use to communicate to Intune.
So it's kind of the glue that holds everything together, right? Everything flows through that application. Awesome.
Yeah. So as I said, this is a fresh Chocolatey install, so I haven't configured any of the Intune integrations on it. All I've done is install the license extension. I installed 7-zip just because it's helpful for other things that we may or may not need. But other than that, this is just base Windows 11.
Awesome. So it does require at least Chocolatey license extension 3.0, a valid Chocolatey for business license, and Chocolatey 0.12.1. At least 0.12.1.
I think so.
Yes.
I think. And Intune itself does require Windows 10.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly which version for the application deployment. It's either anniversary update or creator update, but it is Windows 10. Basically at this point, it's a supported Windows 10 or 11 for deploying the applications. So
Right. Windows
part of that-
8.1 isn't supported.
yeah, for the application deployment portion,
Yeah.
which is what Chocolatey uses.
Yeah.
So and so we'll go ahead and I'll show you how to do the create the application in Azure AD. So I meant to open a new tab, but
That's all right.
whatever. So this is basically we just go into Azure AD. Now you do need to be have the ability to create app registrations and consent for your tenants. So I know that global admins can do it. I believe there are one or two other roles that are able to create the applications and possibly consent. If not, you might need to get someone with those permissions in your tenant to do this for you. But we'll just go, we create a new registration. We're going to call this one Chocolatey Webinar. You leave it as a single tenant application, so it will only work in your in the tenant that you're creating it in. And then we register that. And once it's registered, some of the information that you're going to need is your application ID. This is the client ID that we use in Chocolatey to talk to it, as well as your directory or tenant ID, which is your Azure tenant. It's common across all of your Azure infrastructure. So pretty much wherever you are, you're able to find it. I have created a small script here that just enables all of the stuff and has spot for us to put everything in. So I'm going to put my tenant ID in there and come over here and copy the client ID. And we'll paste that one in there. Now, one of the things that you might see here is we do enable the allow preview features, because this is currently a preview feature. So by default, out of the box, you're not able to Chocolatey convert or Choco convert or Choco push an Intune package until you enable that preview features. And then, so now that we've got the client ID and the tenant ID, we're going to create a secret for our application. And this is just basically the password that we use. You can give it any name you want. You might want to have one of these for each of your admins that are going to be pushing to Intune. So like I've chosen webinar here, I might name it Stevie, and this is the one I give to Stevie.
Mhm.
They are required to expire. I'm going to set it to 3 months because we're just using it here, and that keeps it short-lived. So that will add the credentials and put it down here. The first thing you're going to want to do is copy that off to your clipboard, because as soon as you leave this page, that value, you won't be able to see it again. So we copy that over to our client secret here. And then I'm going to make sure I save that file. We'll just collapse down that region for a little more security. And then, so we've got our secret, we've got our application, but we still need permissions. So we're going to go into the API permissions here. And by default, you're granted user.read permissions on the Graph API. We don't need those, so we're just going to remove them. That way we keep our application to just the permissions we need. Kind of a least privileges scenario. Try and keep it as minimum, but we do need more permissions. So we're going to request the API permissions. We're going to choose Microsoft Graph, because that's how we communicate into Intune. And we're going to choose that we want application permissions. And so this will allow it to run as our application, as opposed to as a particular user of the application. And this also allows you to grant potential, like allow users to do this that don't have the permissions in Intune itself.
Gotcha.
The permissions we want are under device management apps. It is much easier to search, so just do that. And we need read and write all, because we need to read and write all of the Intune apps. And so we'll choose to add the permissions. And this is the part where if you've gotten to this part, you may need to get another admin if you're not a global admin, because the grant admin consent is global admin. As I said earlier, I think there is one other one that is documented somewhere, but we're going to grant that admin consent here, and now our application will be able to talk. Or when I say our application, now Chocolatey will be able to use that information to talk to our Graph API and talk into Intune.
Awesome.
And so
and the documentation for that on our website has all the screenshots and everything. It walks you step by step through exactly what Cory just clicked through to get there. Yeah.
So it's got kind of all this stuff. I think it went in a slightly different order. It did it does the registration and then the permissions.
Yeah.
But it's
all there.
It's all
and
there.
It's current as of today. As of this webinar,
yeah.
The portal looks the same as the docs do. Now, Microsoft might change their mind and change the look and feel of this thing tomorrow on us, and we'll have to update our docs. But as of today, these are accurate screenshots.
Yeah, and in our Intune itself, just to show that we don't have any tricks up our sleeves, there are currently no applications. So this is basically a fresh tenant for all intents and purposes. And so now that we've got those secrets that we mentioned, we're going to want to enable the allow preview features feature, and we also won't need to set our API key. Now, the API key for Intune, we use the Choco API key command that you might be used to for pushing to your repository, and the format of it, as you can see here, is the client ID, the colon, and then the client secret. And the source that you give it is just the tenant ID. So in this case, we're using the GUID. And then you're also able to configure Chocolatey to default on a Choco push to Intune to default to that GUID. So we're going to set that config option as well. And just because the ISE doesn't always play along with things, we're going to do that from inside of a PowerShell terminal. And we're going to, so we'll run those commands. We allow the preview features. We added the API key, and then we set our default tenant. So now, one of what we would generally recommend you do is a Choco download with an internalize, so that you pull everything in, it's down, it's ready, and then when you push it up to Intune, it gets distributed and all of the files are there. They don't need to reach out to anyone to download them. They just have them. A scenario where I don't think that's such a good idea is an example we like to use of 1Password. When 1Password is internalized, this is what we're left with, 1.77 gigabytes of files. Now, the bulk of those two are these two, or not those two. The bulk of that size comes from these two packages, which is 1.7 gigabytes of KB hotfixes for Windows. Now, these, I know for a fact that these two are Windows 8.1 and Windows Server 2012 R2 updates only. If you're not running on one of those operating systems, these packages don't install those files. So I recommend in this scenario to not internalize those, but to internalize the 1Password one. So and for the intents of us actually pushing stuff into Intune, we're not really gonna I'm not really gonna internalize stuff, just because that I only have so much internet, and
Right. It takes time sometimes.
and takes time.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
in the particular, if in this case we'd have almost 2 gigs to push up, and
Right.
and
Yeah, that
I
makes
can only
sense.
be entertaining for so long while
That makes
doing
sense. That
something.
makes sense. So Chocolatey
Yeah.
will allow you to do that really easily. To be able to
Yes.
internalize one package and then not internalize everything else. It's a bit of a 2-step process in order to
Yeah.
do it correctly. But it can be done first by issuing a Choco download command of whatever the package is, 1Password in this case, and not giving it internalize any other parameters, just say Choco download, the package name. What that's going to do is reach out to, by default, the community repository, if that's configured on your source or whatever sources you have available, and pull those packages down in their current form. So in the case of these KB packages, for example, the binaries aren't in there yet. It's just installation code. It's just PowerShell at that point. So they're actually really, really small. If you can see here, they're only 5K. That's perfectly fine. And then that way, when they go to Intune later, and they get installed, they basically no op at that point, right? Before they even get to
exactly
anything.
Because the only time that those like any of these packages, so this 30K of packages that in the other scenario is 1.7 gigs, the only time that these will ever download anything is if you're on an operating system that is not supported by Intune for pushing applications.
Right.
So you're never going to actually need that in the scenario of you're pushing from Intune.
Right. Chocolatey needs them because they're marked as dependencies, but the operating system is never going to use them.
Yeah. So and they will get installed, but they won't download anything. Right. And Chocolatey will see them and will know that everything is good.
Yeah. It's effectively a no op.
Yeah. This is the part that you were saying. So the 2-step process is we've downloaded 1Password, but we actually want to internalize 1Password. In this case, we also want to, and I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. I'm pretty sure it's ignore dependencies.
Yep, ignore dependencies.
And so what that will do is that will get.
You'll want to add force to it. Yeah.
So this is why we do it live. Just to prove that we have nothing up our sleeves. This will go and get just 1Password, but none of its actual dependencies.
Right.
So now when we come back here, our new 1Password is back with that 10 megabytes.
We've put the binaries inside of the package at that point now.
Yeah. So now if we were to push this up to Intune, and really we can, there's no reason not to, it's only 10 megabytes as opposed to 1.7 gigabytes. Yeah. Now, in order to push to Intune, you may have noticed that I have a Chocolatey package and a Chocolatey extension package already here. The very first time that we push to Intune, because we don't have Chocolatey or Chocolatey extension in Intune, we need to create that package. And so we need that in our local directory where we're working from.
Right.
Just for that first time. Once we push it, we don't need those packages anymore because they're already in Intune. But to get them into Intune, we need it because if we can't pull it from your local install of it, because you might have, because you're on Chocolatey for Business, you might have used package reducer and it might have reduced those packages, and then you're not going to get actual installable packages in Intune, which would not be a good thing.
That wouldn't be good.
So
yeah, and we can't guarantee that the sources that you have available actually have Chocolatey in them or the Chocolatey extension in them. So as a first step, you need to make sure that you have those packages available on your machine in the directory that you're going to be working from.
Yeah. Now,
and that
we
makes
do,
sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, we do try to be helpful. I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna grab this. Actually, I didn't need to copy it. So when we Choco convert, we do try to be helpful and give you helpful information along the way. So I'm going to Choco convert Chocolatey core extension, and we're going to specify that we want to format of Intune. And Intune is currently the only format supported by Choco convert, but you do require to specify it. And so what it's going to do is, in this case, we don't have Intune WinApp util, which is the utility from Microsoft of creating the Intune Win files, which is what Intune uses for those packages. So it's going to go ahead and download and install that for us. And then it's going to use it. Now, because we chose Intune, Chocolatey core extension, it went and it looked in the new spec file or the new package file and looked at the new spec to find all of the information about it, including the logo to use or the icon to use in your company portal. In this case, it didn't have one. So we get this kind of cryptic error message about that we couldn't determine the extension of it. So we couldn't download it. You can try manually downloading it from, and then it's blank because there wasn't actually one there. That's more helpful in the case of some packages have they go to just a URL that doesn't have an extension. It might be a JPEG, it might be PNG. We don't know though, because it's just like image host / image 5.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah. They don't have the full URL to like a direct link to the image. That makes sense.
So, but in the case of this one, because I'm in a directory that doesn't have Chocolatey or doesn't have Chocolatey extension, it's given me a warning that I'm going to need Chocolatey license and Chocolatey extension when I upload to Intune, or that I might need them. And that's why we only warn on the convert was we don't necessarily need them there on the push if they're already there. But in our case, we will need them. So if I come back up one and I'm going to do a Choco convert and I'm going to type it properly. We're going to Choco convert one password and to format of Intune. And so this is going to take one password as well as all of its dependencies. That was the other thing I mentioned earlier, was that it takes the dependencies and converts them. So it creates an Intune Win file for all of those files, as well as we see here, it's downloading the files or the images and using them.
Oh, great. So we're going to have the icons for these packages once we get into Intune as well. And that's really cool that you showed the error that you would get, or the warning. It's not really an error. It's a warning that you would get if you happen to forget the step of having the Chocolatey extension and the Chocolatey package available for that first time, that we don't let you continue and then bad things happen. We'll tell you that, hey, you need these things, and then later on we'll either use them or we won't use them.
I'm intrigued by why this is kind of stopped though.
Because terminals take a while.
No, I know why.
Because you're in the wrong folder.
No, I'm in the right folder. So when we look for the package, Chocolatey uses we look for the file, but we also look one directory down, and so it looks and it picks the deepest one in the file tree. So it's actually going into one password.
It's
so it was taking a while because it found the big one.
Gotcha.
This is why we shouldn't stray from the script of we didn't do this yesterday. That's why we didn't have a problem. So I'm just going to delete those ones because we know that that's a really big package and we don't want it. And we're just going to run that again. And this time, assuming that I'm correct, other than that, we now get a whole bunch of red text because the terminal has decided that red is our color.
Yeah. Just clear your screen and then it'll all go away. I think you deleted one too many files.
No, I didn't. I have, there's a process running. I think. Yeah, because it's still trying to.
That should be the only
one.
Yeah,
that should be good. So one thing I will, let's clear these again. And also I'm going to clear that one.
Very good.
Okay. So now we no longer have red text and we're going to convert. And it was much faster this time. And because I just did Chocolatey Core. And not one password. Okay. One more time.
There we go.
There we go. And much faster. And now in this case, so we saw earlier that Chocolatey and Chocolatey extension, when we were in that one directory, weren't found. But we're in a directory that has them. So it hasn't warned us about those. It's warned us about a license, but we'll talk about the license shortly. And if we come over here, we can see that we have an Intune win file for everything. And they are not the multiple gigabytes that we were going to see earlier.
Awesome. So that's a relatively painless process to convert those, right? It's a single convert command against an upkeg, and then it just kind of goes off and does everything it needs to. It tells you what, if it had a problem with a missing dependency or something like that. But it gives you all the information that you're going to need right here in the shell. Now, I'm assuming that some folks will have different teams that they want to do this work, right? And they might have like junior help desk guys or tier 1 folks or people that are kind of skittish around a command line that want to convert these packages. Is there a way for them to do it outside of the command line as well?
To convert, yes, definitely. To internalize, you'd be the one to tell me that, but I don't think you have the
internalization process is you're going to have to rely on either doing it on the command line or having them available somewhere already.
Have some other way to do it. So if we were to, I'm going to pick, I like using Glimpse because I know it's a package that's there because I created it. And it's a relatively small one. But so we'll use this one as an example. So I've downloaded, so we've got them their new package file somewhere. They can just right click on it and choose convert Chocolatey package to Intune.
Okay.
And as long as they've done the configuration earlier of enabling the feature and whatnot, that will convert and everything will be just fine for them.
Awesome. Because you can, from the command line, change what you want to use that's already stored in the config, right? There's command line arguments that would override that as well. So if you want to convert it and you want to use a different Intune tenant or something like that, you could pass it on the command line.
That would be
once you get to the push and all
on
that
the
good
push
stuff.
side. So what we'll do is so then that brings us actually to the next part. So we've got our Intune win files. Now we need to get them up into Intune, because currently, if we go back to Intune, there's still no applications here. We can't deploy anything yet. So if you come in here and we use the Choco push command that we all know from using it on our internal repositories. But in this case now, we're just going to give it one password .intune win and not the normal new package file. So this is the new Intune win file that we created. And so if we choose Choco push, because we've configured our source already, it's going to use those. And because pushing up to Intune requires AZ copy, it's going to go and download that in our case, because we didn't have it already.
Right. So that's interesting too. So when you're doing a convert, we're using Intune Win Apputil. So in that stage, we're making sure that you have that available. And then when you go to push, we use AZ copy to do that work. So we make sure that you have that available there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes sure that you have the Chocolatey package. And so one of the things that it does is it'll go to any of the repositories that you have configured, as well as the community repository as the final destination. If you don't have it on one of your internal ones, it will go to the community and get it.
Gotcha.
Community repository and get it. Because you just can't push up to Intune without AZ copy. There are ways to do it, but AZ copy just
that's the easiest way to do it.
It creates all of the stuff that is needed for it. So and we are I'll talk a bit about the license. So we mentioned earlier that it said, hey, you don't have a license package here, and you might have an issue when you go to push. Well, when we go to push, if we don't see a license package in Intune, we automatically create one. And this is a fun part of Intune, is that sometimes it fails the first time. So that's why that warning came up. So if you don't have Intune, if you don't have a license in Intune, we'll actually take the license off of your local system and create a package that we call Chocolatey-license with a version of your license expiry date, and we'll push that up into Intune for you, so you don't have to worry about pushing that up yourself.
Right. And that's all that part of it is all automatic.
Yeah,
because you're required to have the license, and we know where those licenses are going to be on the system. So we can pull that out and grab that and create that other package. Whereas on the other side of things, when we require you to have the Chocolatey package and the extension package, we're not 100% sure where those are going to come from and if they're going to be able to be retrieved,
installed
for you to be able to grab them and put them into that directory. So that's why we require you to put them there in the first place before you get started. Okay.
Yeah. So as it's pushing up into Intune, it pushes them up and marks all of the dependency trees. So when the very last one that we'll see pushed up here will be one password, because it's the one that we chose to push up. But in order to push it up, we need to make sure that we have everything else it depends on.
Gotcha.
Otherwise,
so it's walking the tree of the dependencies, and checking those and doing them in that order as it pushes them up. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And there it's going. It's doing the one password right now.
Yeah, and so this one is probably going to take a little bit longer because it's 10 megabytes versus the 5 to 30 kilobytes of the other ones. But while it's doing that, I mean, let's refresh and see what we've got in Intune so far. So we've pushed up the packages that we had there, and we given them the name of the title from the new package file, as well as put in parentheses what version it is, just so that you're able to see at a glance, so you don't end up with a whole list of like here's all the chocolaties, and all it says here is chocolatey, and you have to know to
Right.
look over here the version. Or in company portal, the last time I looked in company portal, it didn't list a version at all, so it only gave you the title of what you were installing. So you could end up with, hey, company portal says I have 5 chocolaties to install, which one do I pick?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one.
I would imagine that it actually worked, though. That's probably some kind of because it's there.
It's but it's not yet ready. So it did fail to upload, but it didn't give us any of our other warnings. I'm gonna have to grab logs to take a look at that. I'm gonna delete this application in Intune so that we can push it again. Because one of the things that we can't edit applications when they're in that state where they're not fully uploaded. And I guess I actually could have shown it here. So if you try to push an application that's already in Intune, we will stop you and say, you've already got this here. You can force to push it with the force flag.
Okay.
But in that case, it would actually come back and tell us that we can't even do that because Intune won't let us change anything about that package until it gets into, I think. Now that I'm thinking of it, I might have just glanced over that message.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I can't remember whether it said assigned to at least one group or whether it said that it's not there, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome.
But
so we've got all of our
it worked that second time. So so we've got all of our applications in there. We've got one password. If we come into the properties, we see that it has all of the nodes complete with pictures and stuff from this is because we got this from the community repository. This is exactly what you'd see on the community repository for this package.
Okay, so we took the new spec description,
yeah,
and threw it into the description here. Great.
Yeah, and we put in like we add into the notes section. This is kind of Chocolatey's way of keeping track of what you have in there. So we do ask that you don't edit anything above that line, because if you do, we're not going to know that the application is there and whatnot. We've got the logo that'll show up in the company portal when they go to install. So it's not just a blank square. The install command we put in there for you, it's just Choco upgrade, the name of the application, and we say yes to all prompts, as well as we specify the source as being wherever Intune happens to put it on the file system. There is usually 1 or 2 GUIDs involved in that path, so there's not really much other way for us to find.
Really interesting too, that if you're going to use Chocolatey packages in Intune, you don't necessarily need to have a repository. So if everything is going to be in Intune will take care of shipping the package to the endpoint, and then the endpoint will use whatever folder Intune created as the source of truth for that package, and then install it.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly.
Awesome. So if you're worried about having like a Sonatype Nexus or an Artifactory or a Cloudsmith or whatever, insert repository server here. If you're strictly using Intune, you don't necessarily need to have that repository server. Whereas if you're doing like a hybrid thing where I've got all these Windows 7, Windows 8.1 machines over here, or Windows 10 that are an older version, not supported by Intune yet, I still need a way to use Chocolatey to install applications there. You would need a repository for that. But if you're doing strictly Intune, you wouldn't really need anything.
Or the other scenario, like you've got Windows 10 and 11 boxes, but they're for compliance reasons or company policy reasons or any other reason, they're not able to reach out to Intune. But they're able to reach your internal repository. Would be another perfect example of using you would use that hybrid approach.
Exactly. You might have like laptops and stuff for a remote workforce that strictly is managed via Intune. And you might have everything else that's on corporate property managed not through Intune.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there's a whole bunch of scenarios where you can either be all in on Intune or a hybrid approach. Everything will work. And the cool thing about Chocolatey and internalization and the command line approach to everything, it's all scriptable. So if you need to do it to a repository, you can. If you need to do it to Intune, you can. And if you need to do it in a hybrid approach to where every time you internalize Google Chrome, it's got to be put into Intune and it's got to be put over here into a repository, you could do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we said, the dependencies are all there in Intune. You'll notice on this 1Password that we take a dependency on Chocolatey license extension, but we don't take it upon dependency on Chocolatey or the Chocolatey license. And the reason for that is simple. The Chocolatey license extension takes a dependency on those two. And so Intune actually has this nice dependency viewer that will actually show us the dependencies. So 1Password depends on this deprecated .NET framework package, as well as a license extension and the Chocolatey core extensions. And if we expand on, I'm going to try and make this a little bit bigger, or at least centered. So if we expand the deprecated one, we see that it depends on another package, but also that it depends on the license extension. And the .NET framework one depends on more.
A whole lot of stuff.
A whole lot of stuff.
There's a
also
huge tree there.
But these ones, I was hoping that was the last one.
No,
maybe this is the last one.
Going.
There we go. So these all are pointing up to oh, actually I can zoom out to maybe give us a broader view, but so they're all pointing up to that one. And if the core extension also is pointing over to that. And then when we expand the license extension, it expands to depend on our license and on Chocolatey. And then in turn, the license depends on Chocolatey.
Yeah.
And boy, so this is how.
What a sea of dependencies. So basically what we're getting at is if you're going to use a Chocolatey package as an application in Intune, we need to ensure that the endpoint that you're going to install that on actually has Chocolatey.
Yeah.
So, and in order for the Intune stuff to work, you need a licensed version of Chocolatey and a licensed extension to be installed to be able to consume those packages that were built using either package builder or internalized using Choco download, the package internalizer feature. So you need all of those things in order to install an application from Intune.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we've done here is just ensure that, hey, if I push Google Chrome to a machine, that Chocolatey is installed on that machine, the license is valid and installed on that machine, and it has the extension. And then the package itself, if Google Chrome has any dependencies in and of itself, like a KB or another thing,
or whatever
whatever those are, we make sure that all of that's going to be there so that by the time that Google Chrome installs, it's got everything it needs to be successful.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
As you can show here, it can get extremely spaghetti confusing, but you don't have to worry about it. You didn't have to click next and find silent arguments for all of your stuff and wire up the dependencies yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're using Chocolatey, and Chocolatey has that really rich dependency resolution infrastructure built in, we were able to leverage that and do this for you and take all the guesswork out.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly. And so now we talked earlier and we showed how your junior help desk might convert a package. They can also, now that we've actually kind of set everything up in Intune, we have Chocolatey there, we have Chocolatey license extension and the license. They can right click and choose to upload or push the Intune package. And this just runs Choco push for them. And so it's going to authenticate with the Intune API. It's going to do all of the stuff that it did before.
Great. So they don't even really have to know
Yeah.
what the command is, what the format is. They can just right click on something and say,
And
hey,
say
go do this thing, and it'll
and
do it for
because
them.
we've done all the prep work of setting up our API key and our default
Mhm.
and all that stuff, it just goes ahead and does it.
Mhm.
Now, and if we come back to Windows apps and we refresh, we'll see that we have Glimpse here, which is the one we just installed.
Mhm.
And now to deploy it, we would just do the same thing that we to deploy any other application in Intune. We just come down to assignments. We choose to edit the assignment, and then we decide whether it's a required one, available for enrolled, or to uninstall it. The same way that
You would do anything
you would do for
else.
anything else in Intune. Now we purposely don't add any groups for any of these during the upload, because I find that admins typically like to be able to gate that sort of thing themselves. They'll have their test group that they want to deploy to, then they'll have a bigger one, and gradually get bigger,
Right.
and get more until they finally get out to their production systems.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where we don't know what we don't know, but we know everything about the app. So here's the app. It's ready to go. It saved you a ton of time.
Yeah.
Now you can just go in here and do your assignments. Or if you're using PowerShell to control your assignments and things like that, you could script it as well.
Yeah.
So the
Basically
best of both
do
worlds.
whatever you would already do today. Of course, I have a group called Cory's VMs, but those VMs are long gone. But
right.
As an example, this is just the group. Now, another thing that we discovered yesterday, and this is kind of a teaser, if you pick a new package file, so we have this one right beside this Intune Win, and you go to choose to upload it, we have the package uploader. Now, if you click the three dots here, you can only pick new package files. But what we discovered just yesterday is that if you just type Intune Win there, and you select your source from the dropdown of ours. Now I'm going to choose to force push because we've actually already uploaded Glimpse. But now if I choose to upload, it goes ahead and does it for us too. So
awesome. So you get that UI as well.
Yeah.
Right
cool. Now it's a little clunky because you have to kind of do this workaround. But
yeah,
as I said, we just discovered that it was doable in there just yesterday. So that
smells like a teaser of a feature that may or may not be coming out in a later release, if you ask me.
Exactly. So and so
it's easier.
That one says it pushed, so we can actually go back here to Windows, and this actually shows what a force push does as well. If you go to push something that's already there and you opt to force it, we'll append the today's date to the end of the name so that you can find it later, as well as we'll change the Chocolatey ID in here so that we don't get confused when looking for it later. And that's just so if you push something up and then you realize that the package needs to be changed, because deleting packages it's cumbersome, because if I try to delete this package, it won't let me.
Yeah, it won't let you just delete
dependencies. But if any other packages depend on this one, you also have to find all of those, and
it's painful.
It's certainly not something that we want to just blindly do for you, because there's a good chance that in that case that we might end up deleting packages that you wanted to keep or anything. Right. So we just find that it's better for us to identify it as that Chocolatey is no longer managing it, but you can go and find it yourself. So cool. And I think that's all I
Awesome. We've got a couple of questions that are open over here in the Q&A section. I just want to fire through a couple of them here. And if anybody still has questions that you want to ask, just put them in the Q&A section, and then we can look to get those answered over here. One of the first questions is from Daniel. He's asking, is it possible to use certificate auth instead of a client secret in order to do this? And I'm going to say I don't know because I've never actually tried.
Yeah, I've never tried either. So I certificate auth, the way that we expect it today is in that client secret colon or
Right.
sorry, client ID colon client secret pattern. So that's kind of the way that we've built it. And if there was the request, there's a GitHub repository.
Yeah. We can throw the GitHub repository for feature requests into the chat, actually.
Nice.
That way folks can really quickly get to that. I don't know if somebody from our team can throw that in there faster than I can find it here. But that would be a good feature request to add certificate-based authentication. And that will at least give us something to look at, so that maybe it does work and we just haven't tested it.
Right. Yeah. So, that'd be great. I'm not even, I'd have to really say more than that. I'd have to dive into how that authentication works to see if, but yeah. And as I wasn't here, so no one else has said this in this webinar today. We don't really use Intune inside Chocolatey, so it is really driven by our customers. And so feature requests like the potential of using certificate authentication really helps us determine where to go with it and what features might come next.
Right. So. Yeah, we're very feature request driven. And like Cory said, we don't use Intune internally. So as you guys are using it and see ways that Chocolatey could improve your Intune experience, definitely let us know. And we'll look to see what we can do to add those things into the product. It will only make things better by you helping us out by saying what you need. Great. Another question that we've got here from Jason, is it recommended to ignore dependencies for every app that we need to internalize? I'm going to say no. I wouldn't recommend doing that. We did it here because we were able to identify, based on the name of the package, that those were KBs, and just firsthand knowledge of knowing what those KBs are. They don't apply to anything that's supported in Intune. So we were able to get away with not internalizing, say, that KB 2919355 package. But if you're installing another or internalizing another application that has, say, a dependency on Java or something else like that, if you just say ignore dependencies on the package you care about, you'll never get that Java dependency, and Chocolatey will never install the package later once you get it all the way up into Intune. Intune will work to a point, but once you start to try to convert and push and all of those things, we're going to start complaining because we don't have the dependency that the new spec is calling for to be able to convert that to make sure that you have everything you need in Intune. So it's a really fine line of, I absolutely know that I've already got this package in Intune, so I don't need to internalize it. It's already there. Or I know that this package is not strictly required for Windows 10 in Intune in the case of a KB. So I don't need to, I still need it,
you still need
But I
to
don't need
download it,
it.
but you
I
don't
don't
need
need it
to
internalized.
internalize.
Yeah.
Because if you do, like, just to show, if we were to, I've downloaded just one password, ignoring dependencies. If I tried to convert that, by default, it will fail because it didn't find one of the dependencies. Now I can also ignore dependencies on here. If I can
There you
spell.
go.
And it will convert that so that I don't need to have all the dependencies there for the convert. But again, on the push, without those dependencies, we won't be able to push. And there is no ignore dependencies on the push because it just wouldn't install properly on the
Gotcha.
Intune side without them. So
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
on the internalize, I would take it as a case by case basis and looking at what they are. I pulled up that 1 KB you mentioned, and like as you said, we have firsthand knowledge that it is for Windows 8.1 and Server 2012, so we know that it's not going to be used.
Yeah, and that's
and we
just a
also,
case of testing things, you know.
yeah,
Doing
you can
the
also
research.
expand into the files and see that like it quickly checks that, oh, if it's not one of those, it just skips it.
Yeah, it doesn't,
So,
literally does nothing. Basically,
yeah.
it tells you that it's going to do nothing and then does nothing.
And does nothing.
Yeah. Another question real quick here. Is this app configuration support only Azure Active Directory or for hybrid AD as well?
So I've never tested it in a hybrid AD situation, but my understanding of it is that it would work within hybrid AD. The app configuration is really only there for that connection into the Microsoft Graph API and into Intune, which my understanding is that's there on hybrid AD as well.
Gotcha.
So I would suggest definitely checking those with the like if you're in a hybrid AD and you test it and find that it doesn't work, if you go to that Chocolatey licensed issues repository and open an issue for us, or that actually might be something for them to reach out to support with, maybe.
Yeah, they could reach out. Yeah, they could reach out and we could try to help them out with it.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a couple more questions here.
Okay, and Dave in chat says that he's hybrid and it works. So
okay, perfect. Well, there you go.
Perfect.
There you go. Are we going to show the life cycle process later? What happens when a new version is available? We don't really have time to show it, but we can kind of talk through when a new version comes out.
So when a new version of these applications, so say Glimpse 0.30 came out, one of the reasons that the install command is Choco upgrade instead of Choco install is that if it's already there, upgrade will install it. If it's not there, upgrade, or if it's already there, upgrade will upgrade it. If it's not there, upgrade will install it for you. And the detection script that we can't really show here because Intune doesn't show it, but it uses a custom detection script that asks Chocolatey what packages there are installed, and it compares the version that's installed with this version. So when 0.30 comes out, if you deploy 0.30, you would basically just go in and assign 0.30 out, and any that have 0.20 assigned to them after 0.30 is installed, they'll still detect that 0.20 is listed as installed just because the detection script looks at it as a minimum version. And it's really
Right.
It does mean that you might end up with installs status reporting that you have multiple versions when in fact you don't, but it's kind of the way that we have to work with Intune's
that's just how
and stuff.
That's just how Intune behaves. and we have to live within the confines of Intune for some of that stuff. Now, a more direct one-to-one reporting would be to use something like our central management, so that you see these are the Chocolatey packages and whether they're out of date or not. Because that's all we care about. But Intune cares about a lot more stuff, so the reporting is a lot more complex. That makes sense. Do the converted Intune WIN files preserve the Choco before install PS1 feature? Yeah, they do. It's just the Chocolatey package, and we're doing just the Choco upgrade. So all of the Choco before modify, Choco uninstall, Choco install scripts that are inside of those packages work and function exactly like you would go to a machine, open up PowerShell and say Choco upgrade this thing. The same exact thing is happening via Intune. We're just wrapping it up and telling Intune what to do to invoke Chocolatey.
Yeah, because basically all this Intune WIN file is this new package file thrown into the Intune WIN container, and then we don't do anything special to that file itself. We just give it to Intune WIN and say this is the file that we need you to put inside of you, and then it goes and does its thing.
Cool. We've got time for one more question, and there is one more question from Yvonne. If a user has a running app open, let's say 1Password, and tries to run the install update from company portal, does Choco upgrade prompt the user to close running apps or allow deferral?
That's an excellent question. I think it would come down to how the Chocolatey package was
correct.
written.
I would say it's up to the Chocolatey package to detect process and do something with that information, knowing that the process is open or not. I don't think company portal itself does a check and says, hey, I'm trying to upgrade this application, but it's open. So what do you want me to do with it? I think it will ultimately be up to your packaging to be smart enough to say, hey, this is already open. I can't do this.
And I see it's not in the Q&A, it's in the chat from Rob about for newer versions, when the package is pushed, will it keep previous assignments or do you have to reassign to the existing groups? So when 030 comes out of Glimpse and you push it up, it will be a totally new application. So you would have to go and make the assignment, do all the assignments yourself. From my perspective, this is similar to why we don't do it on the initial push as well, is that 030 comes out. You're going to want to deploy that to your test users, make sure that they don't find any problems in 030 before you end up pushing it to your entire production.
Yeah, we don't, again, this comes back to, we don't know what we don't know, so we don't touch it. We get it into Intune, so it's ready for you to work with, but that's where we leave it, because we have all of the information that we need to do the app, but we don't have any of the information in terms of where does this need to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Cory, thanks for hanging out with us, and everybody that's hung out with us on the stream as well. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all the questions. There were some really, really excellent questions in there. And if you have any further questions that maybe you didn't feel like asking here, or you couldn't think of them, or it wasn't answered to your satisfaction, whatever that might be, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our website, chocolatey.org, and see all of the different ways that you can contact us, get in touch with us there. We'll be more than happy to help. We've got a Discord server. If somebody wants to throw the link to the Discord down in the chat, that would be cool. Come say hi to us. A lot of us that work here at Chocolatey hang out in the Discord server. So you can bug us with questions or feature requests, or just say hi, anything like that. That would be really cool if you would stop by there as well. And that's it, folks. We'll see y'all at the next one. There's a bunch of us going to be at PowerShell Summit coming up at the end of April. So if anybody's going to be in PowerShell Summit and want some stickers, come find me or Corey or any of one of the Chocolatey folks that's going to be there. I'm sure we'll have a whole bunch of stickers to hand out there too. So hope to see you. Have a great rest of your day, evening, night, whatever time it is for you. And we'll see you around.